Bizarre Brain Comics. Hello, my comic book friends, and welcome to Bizarre Brain Comics. I am Gary, your host. This is where I like to take a look at some older comics, talk a little bit about the characters and creators, and then examine the stories and the art. This time, I want to step way back to the 1970s. And then we go back even farther to when this was originally, the story was originally presented. And journey to where monsters are on the prowl. Ha ha ha! And this is The Coming of Monsteroso. Monsteroso, the most fearful fiend of all time. Oh, yeah. That's kind of hyperbolic. And you see this gigantic monster squatting atop the UN building as the building is about to collapse. The monster's not that big, but this is a great monster tale by Lee and Jack Kirby. This is Monsters on the Prowl number 28 from 1974. And it is a reprint of a story from Amazing Adventures number 5. And then has another backup story, which is not about the monsters. It's more of a mystery / horror story, which was drawn by Dick Ayers, early Dick Ayers. From the looks of it, I would say mid 50s, but we're not going to get into that one. This would have been what would that have been? Probably the late 50s when this story originated. And Monsters on the Prowl, it was one of several of their monster titles. Ran from 71 to 74 for a total of 30 issues, but the first 9 issues had a different title. That was Chamber of Darkness, which just reprinted their primarily their more horror-oriented stories. Now, both of those are great titles. I mean, for both Chamber of Darkness and Monsters on the Prowl. And then, of course, they had Where Monsters Dwell and Tomb of Shadows. Those are some great, great titles. And I kind of wish they still had them. I might buy them then, but and of course these monster comics have been reprinted ad nauseum. They're currently available in I think an Epic format, which is really unfortunate because it's a large, oversized, hardback book, and is simply cost prohibitive for me, and that's one I would really love to get, and it's just cost prohibitive. Now, these monster giant monster stories were mostly drawn by Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko, and had a few other artists doing the pencils on some. Because I've got one that's somewhere that's drawn by I want to say Dick Ayers, but I'm not positive on that. Could be Don Heck, could be someone else. I don't remember off the top of my head. But they were mostly these. Well, and they had different kinds. You know, the man-made monsters and monsters in nature, and then there's the aliens, and this one fits into the alien category. And this is actually a good story. It has an interesting twist ending to it. But this is an alien type monster, and by and large, I don't like those as well. I like the man-made and the natural monsters better than the aliens, because it's always aliens coming to Earth. That's in the 50s and 60s. That was always a too common plot device for some threat for both, for the monster stuff and for superheroes for both Marvel and DC. Yeah, and Monsters on the Prowl ran through issue 30. So it was just a couple of issues after this, and it was the last one. Then, of course, the title has been resurrected for some other stuff. Superheroes crossing over with monster stuff. Now, in their monster stories, you know, most of them are just one-off, and they're off in their own little world, and they're not related to any of the others. And then there were some that had sequels, like Fin Fang Foom, for example, had the story of Fin Fang Foom. Who's that Chinese dragon monster, and then they had a sequel to that, and eventually that was rolled into the main Marvel timeline, and he was a villain for him. I'm thinking it was primarily Iron Man, but I can't be sure. But he appeared many times, and some of the others were too, like Colossus was a monster story which had a sequel, and then they brought it back for as a main character for an ongoing storyline that was part of the main Marvel universe, and of course as monsters. And so it's kind of hard to tell which ones, because they've brought so many of these monsters and others into the universe. And of course, Marvel had its origins. The very first Marvel comic, under the heading of Marvel, of course, the Fantastic Four #1 was a monster story. Monsters. Yeah, of course, it had the origin of the Fantastic Four, which is basically a swipe from Challengers of the Unknown from DC, and their main menace at that point was the Mole Man, and he was controlling all these giant monsters attacking New York. And of course, even Mole Man had a backstory with him in another monster storyline from the early 2000s, I think it was. We'll cover that another time. And of course, the Thing himself is a monster, and the Hulk, the Incredible Hulk, was a monster story, and it pulled many elements that they had already used in other monster stories. It's just that he wasn't a giant monster. And of course, even the first issue with Spider-Man in what was that? Amazing Fantasy 15, I think that's what it was. Although Spider-Man was not a monster, on that cover, he was presented as if he were a monster. So, and I dearly love the monster stories from Marvel. And DC had some too, but not of the same kind. They were just mostly just science fiction-y things. And from what I understand, the giant monster genre in the comics kind of came out of the rise of the Comics Code Authority, when they really cracked down on the crime and horror comics. So they had to do something else, and Stan Lee had said in the past, if I remember correctly, and if he wasn't exaggerating, that the Japanese are having a lot of success with that Godzilla thing, so maybe we can do that too, and it gave rise to all these giant monsters. And I love the giant monsters. Hell, I read Marvel's giant monster stuff long before I ever saw anything with Godzilla. So enough of my blah blah blah. We'll take a little look inside the pages of Monsters on the Prowl, and we'll go through this fairly quickly. Okay. Monsters on the Prowl, number 28. Monstroso. Have a look at it, and then open it up. Splash page, and the splash page is just the cover image. So it was, whether it was done for the cover or done for a splash, it doesn't really matter. The escape of Monstroso, and we start off with a circus who's losing money, may soon go broke, and they hear a thing on the news about something crashing in the jungles in Africa, and they think it's some people think it's a spaceship. I don't know why that prompts him, but the guy who owns the circus says, "I'll go check it out." He goes and he gets somebody to lead him out there into the swamps and jungles, and he finds the crashed spaceship. Now, I can't imagine why he would be the one doing this, and because it would have been crawling with government people from all over the world. And he finds a body of a giant monster. At this point, we don't actually see him very well. We can just see that hand, and then there's the reveal. He's on his chest. Well, he's no heartbeat. He's unconscious. No breathing. He's dead. And he makes arrangements to have this would cost a fortune. Have this monster. He's we can exhibit him. Do something to preserve the body, and then we can exhibit it. Yeah, make money that way. So has arrangements to have the body shipped to the United States, and he's bought by a museum, and he's got to have a name, so they just call him Monstroso. So while he's being set up for this display, and and people are there watching, and he wakes up. Oh my gosh! And you can see he's pretty good size, probably 15 to 20 feet tall. It's kind of inconsistent, not nearly as large as they show on the cover, and he smashes out his way out, and he's obviously doesn't know what's going on, and right into traffic. That's a great scene here, and you can see here this is Kirby's earlier style, not quite like he was known for during his during the 40s with his Captain America and stuff, but this is definitely his 50s style before he developed his more robust, heroic style in the later 60s and 70s that he is best known for. But that's a great one there with the monster going down the street. And every couple of pages is an ad. Here we go. And the cops are trying to stop him blasting away, and he dives into the river. that must be it. And then he burrows through the ground, and he comes up right in, because he's by the near the zoo, and he comes up through the pavement at the zoo. That's another great image. Kirby was great at doing these kind of revealed images like this. This would have been a really cool image to have had on the even side of the page, so that it's a reveal when you turn the page. That's great. But here we see, this is that circus guy and his wife. And his wife said, "Oh, what have you done? One of the creatures an evil menace." And said, "Maybe he's not evil. Look at him. Just watch him." And he's in the zoo, and he gently picks up some of the zoo animals, examines them, and then gently puts them back down. And then the cops come in, tear gas, and it of course affects him, and affects everything else too. So he's on the run, and they're harassing him. They're firing at him and getting him with tear gas and the like. There he is going down the street, blam blam blam. While the circus guy, he keeps saying, "You don't harass him. You're only making things worse. He doesn't seem to be evil. He if anything, he's just curious and frightened. He acts like he's frightened." Well, I don't care. He's a menace. They just blast until finally he gets down to the river, and he's climbing up the United Nations building, and they get him up there, and now he's doing the King Kong bit. See, King Kong, doing the King Kong bit, and climbs up there. And the scientist comes up with, got this modified harpoon to a giant syringe, fill it with a sedative, and we should be able to get him. So here he is sitting on top of the building, and they come up with the helicopter, and boom! He tries to reach the helicopter, and they get him. Oh, there he is. He's dazed, and as he passes out, and there he collapses, and he falls off. Fortunately, he falls right into the river, and he is laying there unconscious, but face up. Just then, this really gigantic spaceship, almost as big as Manhattan itself, comes down and hovers. And these even many times larger monster creatures come out. And they find the smaller one, pick it up. They are his parents. And they communicate with humans, says, "It is good that my arch child is unharmed. It is good for you." He said, "We trust our infant son has not harmed any of you puny creatures, and it is fortunate that he is unharmed. Fortunate for you. Now we depart. Farewell, tiny beings." And they take off. And his wife, the guy's wife, apologizes to him, said, "You were right. I'm sorry. You were right." He wasn't evil. He was just frightened, a frightened baby. Yes, and that's a nice twist. And I like that. Then here's just you can see the next story. They're driving me crazy. The Dick Ayers thing, and you can really see this heavily stylized early Dick Ayers work. I'm not going to get into that. So that's what I have this time for Monsters on the Prowl with Jack Kirby and Stan Lee. And I don't know who did the inks on there. Good job. So please like, share, subscribe, share with your friends. And leave a comment. Do you like these kind of monster books? The giant monsters, kaiju. I love these. I love the Godzilla stuff. I love all these monster books and the monster stories that Charlton had too. They were great fun. Which ones do you like? Who was your favorite monster from these? Let me know, because I'm curious too. So thank you for joining me. And remember, comics are art.